All right, here we go, getting ready to draft on Underdog for Best Ball 2022. I'm always down to draft, you know this, and it's never too early to look ahead. Honestly, you got to start planning now if you want to get a jump on the competition. If there's something you know about Chris and I, it is that we are best ball fiends. I'm not quite the fiend that he is in terms of the numbers of draft, but look, we're always ready to jump in there. So let's get into it. Draft is underway. So I drew the sixth pick, and this is a 12 team league with Underdog. You might know it is half point PPR. And then as far as the roster requirements, we're talking about one QB, two running backs, three wide receivers, one tight end, a flex, and then we're going to have 12 bench players. I'll be interested to see how high Derrick Henry goes next year. We know he's supposed to come back as far as the playoffs go this year. We'll see if that happens, and if so, how effective is he? Are you worried at all about his injury status for next year? Jonathan Taylor being the number one pick, that's a no-brainer. I don't see any draft next year in which Jonathan Taylor isn't the number one overall pick. It's going to be still running back heavy in the first round. You know this because everyone loves their running backs. All right, so Henry was, it looked like auto pick there, number two, but not a surprise to see him high. We got Eckler, we got Cook. I personally would have Cook just ahead of Eckler. It's almost my turn already. Here's the other question. Do you trust Christian McCaffrey in the first round? I'll just spoil it for you. No, I'm not going to pick him six if Najee Harris goes here. Do I feel compelled that I have to take a running back? No, I definitely don't. I'm not one of those people who, kind of makes up my mind ahead of time. What about Cooper Kupp? So I'm on the clock here. Am I going to take Cooper Kupp? Based on what happened this year, I still think, honestly, I want that stud running back, not just because I feel I have to. Honestly, after the sixth pick, I would go with a wide receiver instead of any of these guys, but I do like Najee Harris. I think they've got to improve that offensive line. So even though it would feel safer for me to pick a wide receiver, I'm going Harris. He's a guy who can catch the ball. Of course, he's the only running back in town. Big Ben is going to retire after this year. It's almost certain. So this offense will look different. I think that works in Harris's favor. They should have been running the ball a lot more this year than they did. And you know what? I think they're going to have to commit to the run because they're going to have a young, inexperienced quarterback, most likely. Even if they get somebody in free agency, it's not going to be a franchise guy. I don't think they're going to pull off any huge deal here. So I feel like Harris is going to be even more of a focal point of the offense. They've got to go offensive line in the draft and free agency. At least I hope so. So I do think that the arrow is still pointing up for Harris. We're going to see him just improve. Now, we do see regression happen a lot with wide receivers. That's the thing, is Kupp, even if he has a record-setting year this year, really, is he going to do that next year? We've seen so many receivers that they fall off the next year, not through their own fault necessarily, but things happen, right? Odell Beckham, a full season to him. I mean, we'll see if that cuts into, Cam Akers is going to be back, and now all of a sudden the Rams are going to have three good running backs with Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel, and Cam Akers. I don't think that means McVay is going to go run heavy necessarily. That's not his MO. But still, I just don't feel like Kupp is a top five pick. Just, again, we can't let recency bias, be what guides us. I would take Justin Jefferson, honestly, ahead of him. But right now I got Harris. I feel pretty good. I'm a guy who's going to go hero RB most likely. So you talk about zero RB, it's so tempting to do that because, well, you've seen what's happened with running backs this year. Everyone has got hurt. You got bit by guys like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Of course, Derrick Henry was great until he got hurt and missed half the season. There's so many injuries. You hate to even take a running back early. But if you have that one guy like Jonathan Taylor, like for the most part Joe Mixon, a guy like Najee Harris has been not great every week, but some weeks he did carry you. And then Dalvin Cook. If you get that one running back, Austin Eckler too, of course, that makes a huge difference because you're not scrambling to get somebody off waivers every single week and try to replace them down the stretch. We don't know who's going to be that guy, right? Who's going to get injured. Anybody could do that. But again, I feel like having that one guy as your anchor at running back, that's so important. So I'm going to take the guy early because I know all the good running backs are going to be gone by the time he's back to be round two. And now I can take wide receiver, maybe tight end. I don't think I'm going to go running back again at this point because who else do you trust? Now, it's interesting. I see Devontae Adams here still available. The question with him is Aaron Rodgers coming back? We really don't know. There's a lot of risk. So this is going to be the risk-reward play. Do you take a guy like Adams knowing he could be one of the top wide receivers again? Or do you really think that Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back to Green Bay. If that's the case, what does Adams do? Right? Does he maybe go somewhere else? Also, does he want out of Green Bay then? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions, honestly. If I'm here at 2-7 and Devontae Adams is still around, it's going to be hard for me not to take him, but he did just get taken, so I don't have to worry about it. And then you go with the question here. Look at the running backs I got left here: Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, Fournette. Solid guys, but again, do I feel like I need one of those when I already have Harris? I don't think so. Look, I could go Kelsey. Is Kelsey worth taking in the middle of round two? It's interesting because this year he was a first round pick almost unanimously. And there goes Travis Kelsey, just as I was talking about him. So, not tempted to take Kittle there, but interesting that Kelsey lasted that long. And there's Jamar Chase. So now I can go with a guy like, probably for me, it's going to be either Diggs, who is not necessarily going to be a league winner, but solid, CD Lamb, or Debo. I do like me some Debo, and I do think he'll be heavily involved in the offense, but I'll go Diggs. All right. So there you go. Stephon Diggs, look, at least is a guy I know is going to be the number one option for a top young quarterback. There's really no concerns there. Do I feel like I need to play it safe in the early rounds? I mean, sort of, a little bit. I mean, it's nice to know you have a guy who doesn't have really extensive injury history, a guy whose situation is pretty solid. The offense is good there, tied to a good quarterback. That's the main thing. With Debo, here's the question I have with Debo. Who's going to be quarterback next year? Are they sticking with Jimmy G? Is he going to show enough this year? Is he going to get them to the playoffs? First of all, we're not sure about yet. And then is he going to do anything in the playoffs, or is he going to fold as he's done from certain times? What about Trey Lance? Did they get him with a number 3 pick just to sit there all year? And how's that going to work? So there's still some question marks with Debo, enough that I feel a little safer with Diggs. Again, I don't think playing it safe is necessarily what wins leagues. I'm not saying that, but it's not as if there's a huge gap between these two guys. So between Debo and Diggs, I'll take the security of Diggs. I take my chances in the middle rounds, not in round 1 or 2. All right, so after the turn now in round 3, some interesting picks being made here. Look, I get people want their running backs, but after Fournette, Gibson, and Montgomery, now J.K. Dobbins taken at the 3-1. Easy to forget about a guy who's going to be the lead running back for a run-heavy offense, but that is risky, and not just because of the injury. I get that these guys are going to have a role next year. He should be fine as the year starts. But again, it's not like it was a smash, pick for him that he was going to be a league winner this year. It's a guy on a limited upside based on the fact that Lamar Jackson is there leading the offense, run heavy because they have a running quarterback. Dobbins isn't a guy who's necessarily going to get 20 plus touches a game. So I wouldn't take him over Aaron Jones or Zeke Elliott, that's for sure. So that's a little surprising, but I get it. People want their upside. People like their young running backs. When's Cam Akers going to get taken? That's a good question. I see him on the queue, and you look where he is right here. His ADP, early ADP right now, 29 overall. That means it's almost time right now for him to get picked. I was the biggest Cam Akers stan you could find. I'm not taking him here, and then now I don't have the option. So I couldn't take him even if I wanted to, because there he goes at 29. All right, so not blindly ruling out running back, but do I want any of those guys instead of a stud receiver? No. DeAndre Hopkins is looking a little iffy. A.J. Brown, Chris Godwin, I wish. DK Metcalf, man. I think with George Kittle there, I think I take the advantage at tight end, honestly. Either him or Andrews. I know I said all that stuff about Debo, but Kittle, you've seen what a huge advantage he gives at tight end, specifically when healthy. So, I don't think it really matters as much with him. There are some guys here interesting. What will Kyle Pitts do next year? Who knows? Darren Waller, easy to just forget because he's been hurt lately. Waller's getting up there, closer to 30. Kittle's much younger. Kittle has, been more productive when healthy. So the other guy I might consider there is Andrews. But again, I like Kittle a little bit better. Now, I would have taken one of those wide receivers, but the interesting thing here is that these are a lot of guys who here going into the season were top 10 wideouts and have had disappointing seasons. Again, Hopkins, even before the injury that ended his season early, he's somebody who hadn't been putting up big numbers. There he goes at the 3.8. That seems still pretty good spot for him. Again, he's still going to be a kind of low end wide receiver one, maybe more closer to the wide receiver two range at this point. Um, but he hadn't been putting up huge numbers even before the injury. So that's the thing. Is his role in this offense now going to limit him? Not going to be what he used to be. Uh, we'll see. Chris Godwin, I love, but again, with the torn ACL, good chance he's not even ready for the beginning of next season. So this is a guy that might drop quite a bit. And then DK Metcalf, who knows? Because is Russell Wilson even going to be there in Seattle next year? A lot of conflicting reports there. And if he's not, maybe that's a good thing for DK Metcalf. I mean, who would they get instead? I don't know the answer to any of those questions. So DK Metcalf is looking like a really risky pick at this point. Deontay Johnson, again, has been solid. He's Big Ben's favorite target. Big Ben's not going to be there next year, most likely. So Deontay Johnson, you can't pretend that there's no risk there. The safest pick here might be a guy like Mike Evans or even Jalen Waddle based on his target share with Tua. So you look at the picks coming off the board here. There goes Waller. So we've had those top three tight ends go off the board by the end of the third round, but not as high as this year. People aren't seeking that tight end advantage like they were because Travis Kelce not putting up a record setting season like he did before. You saw him fall to the middle of the second round. I was able to get Kittle just a few picks ago. See if we can rewind here. The middle of round 6 for George Kittle. He wasn't going that late in this year's drafts at all. And now you see Waller and Andrews both gone there. So again, if you want one of those elite tight ends, you got to go early, but not as early as this year. I feel like it's a little bit more reasonable. People tend to overreact to things, get tight ends a little too early this year. All right, there's our first quarterback off the board at the 4-2. You got Josh Allen going. I can tell you I'm not going to take a quarterback early just on principle. And yes, that's one of the things I will stick to. You do not need to pick a quarterback early unless it's a super flex league, right? 2 quarterbacks or super flex. You get your top guy early because all the quarterbacks are going to be gone if you don't. But at this point, look, if I wait and I'm the last guy to take a quarterback, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, I don't know that I would take Trey Lance, Deshaun Watson, but you could still get a guy like Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, somebody who's a capable starter. Look, if Deshaun Watson winds up on another team and he's the man, I mean, the starter again, you wouldn't take him as your starting quarterback in fantasy? I know I would. Joe Burrow is not a bad fallback pick. I don't necessarily want to be the last guy to take a quarterback, but I would be perfectly fine with Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. You know, it's a little riskier, but I would be fine with one of those guys. I do not need to take a quarterback early. I would rather load up somewhere else. Speaking of, it's almost my turn. Let's see who's up here. Running backs, still nobody overly impressive. I can wait and take any of these guys. Got my tight end. I'm going back to receiver. And look at that. Guys who I wanted, I thought were the best picks here. Instead of Godwin, I could take Evans. Or I could get my boy Waddle. The Tua connection there. My heart says Waddle, but I know especially if Godwin isn't a full go and Antonio Brown isn't back next year with the Bucks, I think Evans is still the smarter pick. So gonna go with Evans. Going with Evans. I don't think Waddle will come back to me next round, but it's okay because if you look, here's where you can get some discounts here. Calvin Ridley, I mean, we don't know the deal with him, but he should be back next year, you would assume. Again, that's still very risky to pick a guy like him, but the upside is massive. You can get him in the 5th round, potentially a wide receiver 1. So you wait and you could take chances there if you feel like you already have 2 solid receivers, which I do. I don't know if he'll last, but I could take him. I could take T. Higgins, any of these guys that are left. Kyler Murray, Pat Mahomes. Now we see quarterbacks taken. I always love seeing quarterbacks taken because I know I'm not going to take them anyways. That leaves some of these wide receivers for me. Look, Tyler Lockett, I'm nervous about because without Russ there, hypothetically, that connection is what makes Tyler Lockett so dangerous. He loves to throw it his way, and he connects on the deep ball with him like no other. If that connection isn't there, yeah, you can have Tyler Lockett. I'm going to pass. So a couple picks left. Got some solid choices here. My top choices, of course, are gone, but look, some really interesting names on the board here. Is anybody brave enough to take Michael Thomas as a starting receiver? I'm not. I can tell you that. There's just too many red flags waving there. It, yeah, I'm not. So I'd rather settle for a guy like Amari Cooper, and I don't feel like that's really settling if he's my third receiver. Devontae Smith becomes interesting, and so does Elijah Moore. Honestly, love Elijah Moore. I don't know about Zach Wilson, but it didn't really seem to matter who was at quarterback there. So now we got a choice between Thielen, Cooper, Hollywood, Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, and even Mike Williams. Nobody down here I love more, so I'm gonna make my way back. Oh, I almost missed Michael Pittman. You know what? I do like Michael Pittman. I will go with Michael Pittman. All right, look at the squad so far. Got Najee Harris at running back, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, and Michael Pittman. That's a pretty solid 1, 2, 3 punch at wide receiver. And my tight end is George Kittle. So, needless to say, I'm pretty happy with what I got so far. Haven't filled in quarterback, not too worried about quarterback because I will get somebody who's solid. And running back, we're definitely going to wait. So we've talked about this a lot as far as strategy goes. Waiting on your RB2, there's absolutely no reason to take your second running back anywhere before round 6. I would argue even round 8. That would be the earliest. You've heard of the dead zone, the running back dead zone. We're in it. Okay, so let's go back and take a look after some more guys have been gone, like Travis Etienne. Take a chance on him. Fine. Michael Carter is the guy who's most interesting, but again, this is the Jets we're talking about. And there he goes, Michael Carter. I get being tantalized by the upside, but man, there's just such a low floor with him. Such a low floor because that offensive line is still a mess. I get that they're going to have a really good draft pick and they can make some improvements, but there's a lot of improvements that need to be made. And for a running game, it's harder to just, to just bolster that line good enough so that they can have an effective running game. So I would pass on him, honestly, at the early ADP that you're getting. I think you could see just as many big games from a guy like Miles Sanders. And I've not been a Miles Sanders fan, but at least the Eagles have a pretty good line and they're committed to running the ball. And they should be able to, and they have been able to run effectively. If you go down here, there's really nobody exciting. There's really nobody that you want as your RB2. But is there a big difference? Look, you get Sony Michel, and I get that Cam Akers is coming back, but you think that Michel could have some usage, could wind up somewhere where he gets used. So I might prefer to just wait and take a risk on a guy like that. You don't want to wait too long, but again, a lot of these rookies that are coming out are the guys that you would want to take. James Robinson just went. That's the guy I would be tempted to take if I took a second running back at this point. But again, I'm not. I'm passing on purpose. All right, so Amari Cooper is gone. My choices now, rookies, go Devontae Smith or Elijah Moore. I like them both. This is a close call. There's some question as far as the quarterback situation on each team. I think, honestly, I like what I saw from Elijah Moore enough. I could take him right here. Even though Devontae Smith is the number one guy in Philly, I just love Elijah Moore. I just do. So I'm going to take him. I feel pretty good. Again, he's my flex play, my fourth receiver. And there's still, look how many quality receivers there are left here. I come back next round, maybe take a Brandon Ayuk, take a Robert Woods, somebody like that. Brandon Cooks, pretty low ADP. You've got to think the quarterback situation in Houston is going to be better next year. So Cooks is someone who's interesting. Gallup, could move on, set for free agency. He's somebody that could find his way to bigger value. Odell Beckham, I mean, here's the real risk reward play. Allen Robinson, I could be looking at him in a round or two. I know he had a miserable season, and I get that you might want no part of him after this year. But if you think about it, it's almost like he's just waiting, biding his time to get out of Chicago. Didn't want any part of it. People say he's been dogging it, which is, that's definitely not something in his favor that you can say, makes you think of him as a competitor. And, it's not the type of attribute you want for a player, either in real life or in fantasy, right? If he's not given 100%, which he should be no matter what because of his contract situation. I get that. But let's just say, good chance he's somewhere else next year. It's automatically going to be an upgrade in offense, right? And if he really is motivated then to prove that he is still an elite receiver and kind of wipe away last year, we could be looking again at a guy who flirts with wide receiver one value. And if you can find that in round 7 or 8, I mean, to me, that is worth a shot. So I get if you don't want any part of him, but honestly, to me, I feel like he's due for a huge bounce back season. So I'm looking at him. I'm not feeling like he's a must draft. But again, we get to this range. I really love the upside of all of these guys. Rashad Bateman, really like Bateman. Um, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, man, those guys are such talented receivers in a bad situation. So what's Denver going to do at quarterback? Are they going to make a big move? I don't know. That would be a huge change in their value. They would jump up immediately. Um, but if they bring Melvin Gordon back, it's still going to be run heavy offense, so that's going to limit their value. So I'm not quite as enthusiastic about those guys. All right, Danny on the clock now. Believe that's Danny B, one of our Endgame community members. Big shout out to him for joining the draft. So, wide receiver, you saw that Michael Thomas did just get taken. That's a risk reward play too. Like Allen Robinson, I feel better about Robinson though because he actually has been healthy this year. His issue is not physical. Michael Thomas, I think it's kind of both. He's got the diva mentality and the ankle injury, and who knows if he's going to rehab. I mean, to me, like I said, there's way too much risk there. I don't think I feel any to take a chance on a wide receiver like that down here just yet. Let's check out what we have here at running back. I'm still not in love with any of these guys. At quarterback, no, nobody here that I love either, to be honest. I think I'm going to wait. I could probably take another solid receiver here. I could take a guy like Robert Woods, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. All right, so what am I looking at this next round? As of right now, I got one running back, one tight end, and 5 wide receivers. Could I conceivably take another wide receiver? I definitely could. I'm thinking about it. I might take either Brandon Cooks or Allen Robinson next. So I'm going to queue these guys up. If you know how Underdog works, super simple. Love the layout. You probably can't see everything on my screen, but again, you just add them to your queue. You can filter not just one position, but multiple at the same time. Let's see, I want to just look at flex plays. I can do combine running back, wide receiver, and tight end. I'm really glad, by the way, to get that early tight end. I still think that's a viable strategy because if you look what's left, Gronk, of course, could definitely be solid again. But then you got guys who are just so iffy. Goddard, I think you feel kind of good about him, but again, he's been very up and down. We still don't know exactly what Philadelphia is going to do as far as quarterback next year. They're going to commit to Hurts like they should or not. Gesicki had some big games, so he's also disappeared. Fant is a guy who should be doing better, but again, because the offense he's in has not. So I don't feel great about starting any of these guys. So I'm glad that I kind of have someone I consider forget as a top tight end. So I don't need to worry about that. Again, none of these quarterbacks jump out to me more than the others. So I can actually feel comfortable taking another wide receiver because none of these running backs to me are guys I really necessarily feel are going to be starters for me. I'm okay taking a guy I don't think is going to start. This is best ball. I don't need a second running back that I can start every single week for the entire season. I just need a rotation of 3, 4 guys that will play and get me some points because my wide receivers will carry me and my tight end. So I can look at guys that are not as exciting, but guys who could give me some points. If you look here farther down, mentioned Michelle before. Ronald Jones is a possibility. Devin Singletary coming on as the lead back in Buffalo. That guy, that's an interesting pick. I might even target him. Don't remind me about Trey Sermon this year. I know. All right, here we go. I'm on deck for round eight. Again, I have one running back, I got a tight end, and five wide receivers. No quarterback as of yet. Now, at wide receiver, Allen Robinson did get taken, unfortunately, so don't have that value pick. I went with Robert Woods last round instead, so that's okay. That's okay. Now, quarterback, I'm looking at the fact that Joe Burrow just got taken. I don't love Russ anymore. Sorry, not just this season, but a lot of question marks about him. Definitely a lot of question marks with Deshaun Watson. So either take a risk with Fields and Hurts, but again, I feel like I can wait on that position because there's not a big difference. And I think I'm gonna have to go running back finally here, and I'll take a chance on Darrell Henderson. I know Cam Akers is coming back, but Henderson showed something, and I feel like Henderson's still going to have a role. So I just like his upside better than those guys. Chase Edmonds is never going to be more than a third down back. Stevenson is just a short yardage guy. Don't feel like he's anything special. And you look at the running backs left here. Again, none of these guys are guaranteed to have roles next season. So I'm going to at least get a guy I know can get me some points. And I do have Devin Singletary queued up a little bit lower. He's much lower here, actually. But that's a guy who I've been very down on the last 2 years, but he's looking better this year. The Bills are finally showing that they're kind of done with Zach Moss. For whatever reason this year, he's been healthy scratch, and Singletary has been looking pretty good. So I think that's somebody who I can go with pretty soon. I don't know if there's any other running back that needs to get taken earlier than him. Again, a lot of risk here. Deontay Foreman's kind of interesting, but that's going to be a much later round pick. Much later. Nobody else here, I don't think, is going to get snatched up before that. Chase Edmonds is a guy you could get some points for, so I feel he's like an okay value at this point. Let's see what else is on wide receiver. Cortland Sutton. I mean, for the 9th round, why not him or Christian Kirk? Juju coming back. Do we like Juju next year? I know nobody likes Juju, but especially we have no idea who Pittsburgh quarterback is going to be. All right, here's where we talk a little bit about ADP. So you see this is sorted by their early ADP, and this is where people have been taking players. What happens to create this ADP? A lot of recency bias. So you can't really go just by the ADP, and don't feel like just because a guy is not on your screen here that you can't scroll down and take somebody much lower. So for example, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown queued up next, but I think I have a more glaring need at my RB2, and I did mention I like Singletary. So I'm going to go ahead and take him right here. And then I do feel good. Again, maybe somebody else thinks the same way, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, you know he's going to be the number one receiver for Detroit, and that offense can only get better. So for next year, I feel pretty safe about him, much better than some of these other guys who are more established names but aren't as productive. I care about how many fantasy points they put up, not how many they did in their past. So I'm going to probably target St. Brown in my next round pick. If he doesn't go, maybe one of these guys who is higher up here like Sutton, Kirk, who I feel pretty good about, can be my 6th wide receiver. Again, don't feel like I need to go just running back, because I have only a couple left. Plenty of options left here. Notice I still don't have a quarterback. I'm okay with that because, again, there's Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson going. Those guys waited. You know what? To me, there's a good chance Tua puts up as many points as Russell Wilson. He's doing better than him this year. Why wouldn't he do even better next year if the Dolphins actually get some help at offensive line? I know this is my Dolphins bias coming out, but Tua has been really good. Everyone look at the stats, and you can see that. I think he's just going to get better. I would rather take him over any of these quarterbacks ahead of him, except for maybe Fields or Hurts. Fields, I mean, Matt Nagy has to get fired, doesn't he? Don't they have to get a new coach, and that would help Fields? And then Hurts, you've got to think they would stick with him next year. That's the risk, is why, for whatever reason, he hasn't been impressive enough, even though they might even make the playoffs this year. That's the question, is Hurts really going to be the starting quarterback? Now, in best ball, here's the thing. At quarterback, you don't need that guy you can set and forget. You need some guys who can give you big weeks. So here's what I'm looking at, and I always do this at quarterback for my best ball drafts. You're going to take 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks, depending on who you got, right? Depending on the depth of the league. You take one guy who is that risk reward play, who has that high upside, a guy like Fields or Hurts, who I'm going to take coming up next. And then you take a safer player, somebody who at least in those down weeks for your other guy is going to get you that safe floor, someone who's more dependable. So I'm looking to pair Fields or Hurts, depending on who's left, with a guy like Tua, or if Tua isn't there, um, I mean, I could say maybe even a guy like Jimmy G. Ideally, it would be somebody better. Like Tannehill, I guess. Tannehill. So there goes Fields. So now I'm hoping that Hurts comes back to me. If he doesn't, it's not a killer because there's still plenty of quarterbacks left, but that's who I'm looking for. Again, if Hurts only gets me a few weeks that are huge weeks, that's going to help me a lot more than that guy like Mac Jones, who is never going to throw more than 2 touchdowns in a game or 300 yards in a game. That's not what wins best ball leagues. We're looking to win this league, right? It's not like a traditional league where you make the playoffs and then you try to, make your way through the winning lineup. You want as many points as possible, and that comes from boom weeks. So here comes my boom quarterback, hopefully. And sometimes even pocket passers doesn't have to be a running quarterback. Sometimes pocket passers even can be those boom bust guys. Kirk Cousins has some big weeks and he has some down weeks. But there we go. Got my guy Jalen Hurts. All right, so we waited until round 10 to get a starting quarterback, and I'm going to probably immediately pair him with my other safer quarterback because then the drop off gets kind of ugly. I really don't want to roll with a Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence. Carson Wentz would be okay. And in fact, Carson Wentz, now I think about it, it's kind of interesting because I do have Michael Pittman, and you do have some of those stack games. Talk about stacking. It's not a necessity. It does help if you have the right stack, but don't stack just for the sake of stacking, right? You don't feel like if you have this quarterback, you have to get one of his receivers or vice versa, right? It doesn't necessarily work that way. If you had the Matthew Stafford Cooper Cup stack, that worked out pretty well for you. But again, it's hard to get, right? Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, that kind of thing. There's not that many really elite stacks that you can pull off. So with Jalen Hurts, who would I even put him with? If I had Devontae Smith, that would be okay. But that's, again, has Devontae Smith had huge week-winning kind of games? Not really. So I don't feel compelled to get Carson Wentz just because I have Michael Pittman. It might work out nicely, but I think I'd rather have the upside of Tua instead. So I'll go for Tua, and if he's not available, then I'll wait and I'll settle for Wentz. All right, getting to round 11 now. Unfortunately, I did notice that Amon-Ra St. Brown was taken right before I took my quarterback. So at wide receiver, if you look, it's kind of ugly here. Got guys like Kenny Galladay, who I'm never going to count on again. Jacoby Myers, who doesn't score touchdowns. Again, these aren't guys who have that upside that you want in best ball. Devontae Parker will have some big games, and maybe I pair him with Tua if that's who I get at quarterback. But I wouldn't do that again just for the sake of doing it. Gabriel Davis is a guy who's probably more interesting here. Maybe Russell Gage, but again, that would be only if Calvin Ridley doesn't come back because Gage really only kind of stepped up after that point. So let's see what we do here. Running back, it doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and get that second quarterback so you don't have to worry about it the rest of the draft. I'm going with Tua. That's right. There we go. Now, as far as quarterbacks go, most of your winning lineup roster construction is going to be a 2 quarterback format. You don't want to spend an extra pick on a quarterback because you should have between your 2 picks at least one guy who can get you points each and every week. So you shouldn't really have to worry about a third quarterback. You'd rather spend that pick on a running back who could get you some points and fill in because the attrition is so much higher, especially this year. So if I have 2 guys I feel pretty safe about, I'll only go 2 quarterbacks. If I'm very iffy on one of them, then I might go ahead and take a third. Now, with Jalen Hurts, the question marks surrounding him, and Tua, who has been injured at times, I might need a third quarterback based on those particular players. I didn't go quarterback early at all. But again, it's not necessary that I go with 3. It might be worth the risk that those guys pay off because you have to take risks in best ball. You cannot just have a safe team. It will not win unless you get extremely lucky and have a breakout player. Like Cooper Kupp was seen as a safe, not exciting player coming into the season, kind of the same as Robert Woods. and Cooper Cup's winning leagues. Okay, but unless something changes, they bring in a guy like Stafford, something happens dramatically, it's not going to be that situation. All right, so you have to shoot for upside. So I'm going to wait and see about my third quarterback if that happens. Only if there's not any running back I feel is worth taking. Now, the fact that the NFL draft hasn't happened, there's no rookies to pick from. It's going to be a thinner field, and a lot of these guys aren't going to be relevant. So in this case, I might take a third quarterback just for that reason. Who it's going to be, I have no idea. Probably a guy with some upside. Maybe one of these rookies from this year, like a guy like Zach Wilson. I know that sounds crazy, but hey, you never know. Jordan Love, if Aaron Rodgers does move on, Tyler Huntley, somebody who looked good, maybe will get a job somewhere else. Okay, so that might be a guy I take as a third quarterback with upside. All right, round 12. Gonna do the very non exciting but necessary task of backing up my tight end. Hunter Henry, Cole Kmet. Hunter Henry, Cole Kmet. You know what? Figure Matt Nagy's got to be out of there. So we'll go with Kmet. He's a guy who, third year, who knows, maybe steps up and becomes one of those breakout players. Hunter Henry, solid, but you never know exactly what's going to happen with that offense. A little too conservative. So take the upside with Kmet. Now, as far as tight end, do I need to take a third tight end? Probably not. I'd rather take a third quarterback because with Kittle and Kmet, this isn't a league that gives a tight end bonus. If you're in FFPC, that's a league that gives you a bonus extra half point per reception for tight end. Yeah, you want to load up on tight ends, but for this league, I think I'm pretty good. Got a lot of potential here, but it's not that I need to get another guy. So there we go. Going with two tight ends, and now we're gonna look away from tight end and let's go back to running back and see how ugly it is. Rashad Penny, no thanks. I think I can pass on Penny. Michelle is interesting because, look, with the Rams, I do have Darrell Henderson. What if Cam Akers re-injures himself, doesn't get back to full health? Do I just own that backfield then? Or is that considered a wasted roster spot? It's too soon to tell. So I probably will stay away from that and go with somebody else. I do like Dante Foreman. Look, I get that Derrick Henry should be back. But again, what if he re-injures himself? Foreman, what if he gets a shot somehow, somewhere else? Also many questions, but you got to take a chance somewhere. All right, about to come to me to round 13. Running back still a mess. So I'd rather secure another stud wide receiver or potential stud wide receiver. I see Gabriel Davis sitting there. Seeing what he can do late in the season. Tied to Josh Allen, that's another good thing. And I do have Stephon Diggs. If Diggs goes down, that's going to be a huge bump for Davis. So it's kind of an insurance policy there. Nothing wrong with that in best ball. So I'm going to go Gabe Davis. All right, now let's talk about the idea of handcuffing in best ball. Is handcuffing something that you are okay with, that you want to advise people to do as far as you have your stud running back and then getting their backup? I'm okay with it. Again, I don't think it's necessary, but it's definitely smart. There's some cases, for example, this year, you got Christian McCaffrey, especially with the number one pick, and he's gone half the year or more than half the year. You got Chuba Hubbard. He helped you out in a few weeks. Didn't turn out to be a stud, but again, doing that was helpful in certain situations. There's some situations where it's probably not too helpful. For example, I have Najee Harris here, and you have Najee Harris this year. If you backed him up with any Pittsburgh running back, it was a wasted pick, right? Because he's been healthy all year so far, thankfully. But even so, if he wasn't, who would step in and who would be the guy? Would it be Kalen Ballage? Would it be Benny Snell? And if you have those guys, are they really going to help your team? So it depends on the situation here. You don't have to feel obligated to handcuff your stud running back. But obviously, if you have a guy like Dalvin Cook, you definitely want Madison if possible. It depends on the situation of the team. Look, some teams will go straight to a committee to replace a player like that. So it just depends. Khalil Herbert, for example, he's the first guy you see still on the board here. He had a couple of weeks where he was really good, but that was it. 2-3 weeks, and that's all it got you. So it did help you in that case. But again, you've got to decide if it's worth the risk. If you're taking a running back late, then yeah, I'd say it is worth it. So you see running backs now, these backup running backs, guys I had queued up or flying off the board here. Darrell Williams, Sony Michel. Look, I can't take a guy who's been a healthy scratch like Zach Moss or Trey Sermon, who I thought would be productive but haven't been. Marlon Back, same thing. These are guys that just aren't valued as much by their team, you know. So I'm probably going to take a chance here with James White, a guy who, if he's back to full health next year, he's going to catch passes. He's going to have that role because Bill Belichick loves him. So I say we're going to go with James White here unless he gets taken and I get sniped. But I'm okay with a guy like White in best ball. And I keep talking about upside and preaching that. But you need a guy who will at least get touches. It is nice to have some semblance of floor so that way you're not left with nothing on certain weeks. And White does have potential to score touchdowns, as we've seen. So, given the risk of my other running backs after Harris, I think it's okay to take a guy like White there. And then my next running back will be kind of a roll of the dice. All right, wrapping this thing up, it's round 20. Fill you in on what has happened so far in the last few rounds. Got myself a couple of receivers and Tyler Johnson, kind of to back up Mike Evans, if you will, but also with Godwin out. Somebody who's interesting to me. Deontay Harris in New Orleans, catching passes from my third quarterback. That's Taysom Hill. Kind of surprised Taysom Hill was still around that late. But again, normally wouldn't take a third quarterback, but with the iffiness of Jalen Hurts going into next season and to his health history, I think it's okay to take a guy like that. And I might lie and take a third tight end right here because I have Kittle and Komet, but Brevin Jordan is very interesting to me, not just because he's from the U, but if Houston does get themselves a real quarterback next year, who knows? He could be the starting tight end on a decent offense at least. It doesn't have a lot of other weapons at receiver. The other choice here is if I take another running back. Right now I got 6 of them, but again, so much is going to change a running back. So many rookies are going to come in and change things. Jared Patterson would be the one guy I might be interested in just because he's kind of the direct backup to Antonio Gibson. But man, that offense has looked rough. So I'm going to go ahead and take my third tight end in Brevin Jordan. So there you have it. That's the squad. And we'll see the final results here in a second as soon as the draft finishes. So let's take a look at the big board here. One thing Underdog has is a nice, big, beautiful, full draft board, and it updates live as you go. We get to the bottom here. You can see on the clock, the second last pick being made, and so you can see color-coded, of course, by position. The squad here, mine starting with Najee, and then not a lot of green, right? Not a lot of green up until round 8. Took a second running back. I even questioned that pick, Darrell Henderson. Kind of was the best left. I probably should have just taken another receiver and then gone running back again later, but that's okay. So right now you can see the draft board on the clock, and it is about to be wrapped up. All right, so here's my final team. Again, way too early, 2022 Best Ball League. At quarterback, I got Jalen Hurts, Tua as number 2, and Taysom Hill as number 3. Feel pretty good that there's going to be plenty of boom weeks with those 3 guys. As running back, going to hero RB. No reason to stock up on running backs early, especially this early. We have no idea how a lot of these backfields are going to shake out. You've seen drafting running backs, it just doesn't pay off. But especially in best ball, you can't play the waiver wire. So went with Najee as my anchor, got him at number 6. And then just kind of a mix of guys in timeshares who I just want to kind of get by with on a weekly basis. So Darrell Henderson, definitely a risk there. Devin Singletary, I think should be the guy who kind of slots in as my running back too. Most weeks, James White, the unexciting but high floor player who should get me by, and then took some risks with Deontay Foreman and Justin Jackson. You have to do that this early. Again, at running back, way before the NFL draft, running back 2 is going to be your weak spot, and that's okay. A wide receiver, looking pretty good here. Got Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman as my top 3, and then Elijah Moore, Robert Woods as my 5th receiver, and Gabriel Davis, definitely some upside there as my 6th guy, and then some chances on Tyler Johnson and Deontay Harris. And at tight end, we have a big advantage here with George Kittle, Cole Kmet number 2, and Brevin Jordan I like as my number 3 guy. All right, there's a sneak peek at the way too early 2022 Best Ball Draft. Guys, if you're ready to draft and look ahead, a chance to win some money based on what you know right now, then go ahead and jump in there at Underdog. Guys, if you have not joined Underdog, I guarantee you will enjoy it. They have so much to offer besides best ball. You can do live weekly drafts, DFS, pick 'em. We got rivals contests. There's so much you can do. So go ahead and jump in right now. If you use promo code ENDGAME as a new user, then that will not only help us out, but get you a discount. So go ahead and do that right now. And they're matching for your first deposit. So again, there's more information in the description below. Check it out, and hopefully you win some money having fun. All right, good luck.